So anticipatory grief is the act of grieving before a loss has actually happened. And it's very natural and is actually a protective mechanism of our body. It allows us to experience a portion of that grief before the loss so that when the loss happens, we don't have to experience all of that emotion in one moment. And so instead it lets us prepare for that loss by adapting before it actually happens.
Sometimes anticipatory grief can affect us physically. It can affect our appetite, our sleep patterns. When learning to cope with anticipatory grief, I like to think of the 3 C's of coping. Choice, you choose what's best for you. Connection, connect with others as much or as little as you can. And communicate your needs. When coping with anticipatory grief, choice can give you empowerment. Choose what activities to engage in, as much or as little as you like. Connection. Community connections are important. Lean on your loved ones if it feels right. Talk to someone in your community or talk to your counselor or care team. Communicate your needs. Talk to your loved ones, your friends or your family, your community, your care coordinator or your care team. It's hard to be vulnerable, but it's important to cope with your anticipatory grief.
So anticipatory grief, just like grief, is a deeply personal experience, and it will be different for everyone. Some people might feel sadness and cry. Other people might feel anger and lash out. Additionally, what people need might be different. Some people will want to speak with their family members or maybe reach out to a counselor. Other people will need time to process them by themselves. And because of that, we also know that it's important to meet people where they're at and support them with what makes sense for them. And so the supports that we provide also need to be individually tailored to everyone. So there's several factors that can make anticipatory grief more intense. Certainly if someone who's ill is younger, if the illness has happened quite suddenly, or if there's just a really strong emotional attachment. These can all make anticipatory grief more intense. On the other hand, there's other things that can make it also improve and feel better, even though nothing really takes it away. And this is where it really comes down to the work that the individual kind of has to go through and what they are thinking about. And so as we think about these changes in their lives, it's important that people also think about, even though my life is different, are there still ways that I can find meaning in this life? Even though it might be, as I said, different than it was before. And am I feeling like I needed to go through this all on my own? Or am I being open and honest and communicating with my loved ones and those I trust about how I'm feeling and what my needs are? These are all things that are going to help improve and help us get through this period of anticipatory grief just a little bit better. I think like many things in life, it really comes down to communication. And when we're dealing with grief, I'm talking about communication with others, and think about how we're kind of communicating within ourselves. When we think about communicating with others, it's so important that everyone gets to try and be on the same page. And the idea being that if I'm not telling others what I need, my loved ones and those I trust are probably still going to try and help me, but they might miss the mark. They might not know if I need more support or less in that moment. But being open and honest with everyone allows everyone to get to that same page. And often both parties are a little bit more satisfied and they're both working through their grief in that moment. Within oneself, I think that idea of communication is just as important. The idea being that if I'm having thoughts in my mind and I'm keeping them in my mind and not expressing them in the real world, those thoughts are only going to linger and they're going to swirl around and round, and typically they get more intense. Whereas the idea of communicating them out into the real world can help reduce that. This might look different to different people. Some people may choose to express their thoughts through talking with loved ones or with a counselor. Other people may want to journal or do art or some other form of expression. But the idea is the same, that I need to get a thought in my mind and act on it in the real world. And by doing that, I can help control those emotions and those feelings that might be building up inside my head. I can deal with them in one moment so that then I don't have to deal with them in another moment. And it lets me kind of compartmentalize a little bit more, which can help people feel better and enjoy that quality of life that they still have. Anticipatory grief can be experienced by anyone. We most often think about it as kind of a caregiver or a loved one who's grieving the loss of someone with an illness. But that person with an illness themselves can also grieve that. They are grieving the loss of their future life or their future quality of life that they just may no longer have. And so it's important to acknowledge that it can really happen in anybody.